Welcome to DOS Geek. I cannot believe you made it to video 3. You must really like me. They really do. But if you've not checked out video 1 and 2, then you may get a little lost in this. This is a full series tutorial that I did for a patron who requested it. So I hope everyone gets some learnings out of this tutorial here. And this is our third series where we're going to cover some things like keyframing, text, adding in text overlays, audio adjustments, maybe removing some clips again, and some slider edits, because I didn't talk about the slider cuts or trimming that you can do in my last video, and that's because I don't utilize it all that often at all, but it is an option in here, so I will show it to you. So the first thing I want to say from video 2 is I've added the voiceover, and I utilized this here to record the voiceover for this video because I had no audio for these clips that I pulled in. And so, this video here on the Scrappy tool, SCRCPY, Scurcopy tool that I'm doing a video on will actually be live on my channel. So we're editing an actual video that will go up. But if you're doing family videos or anything else, this will work as well. So I want to add there's a point in here where I start talking about the name Scrapcopy. And so maybe I'll put some funny text across here just to show you kind of how text works within Lightworks. So here we go. So what we are looking at here is a tool called Scrappy, SCR. Okay, so here would be a funny spot to kind of add some text in as I'm trying to pronounce the name. Wait, I didn't get let's add a mark in, and let's see how I start. SCRCPY, Scrapcopy from Genie Mobile. There we go. Okay, so this is the section that I want to add the effect into, but we could add an additional video layer, but you're going to see once we do an FX, it's going to actually add an FX layer for us here. So what we're going to do now that we've marked the section, we want to add some FX effects, which text is under the section VFX. And here we have a bunch of options. Now, if you are into changing the color tones, the gamma, the contrast, the brightness, here's where you can do it. Once you've set up keyframes here, they will translate over to the effects that you're adding in, so it won't overlay it over everything. If you don't put any keyframes in, then it will basically put the effect over top of every single thing in the timeline, which isn't always the best idea there. So in this case, we're going to add some titles. So here you can see when we click the plus sign, it gives us some favorites here, but this isn't everything. This is just the favorites, which is pre-selected. So these are the ones that I've utilized the most often, but there's a lot of other options here. Color corrections, tritones, black and white contrast, and I'll let you play with these various things, but you can basically double click or drag them in and utilize those. And you can see that you can target the region as marked section, the current clip, matching clips, and then click apply the effect and the duration of the time that you want that effect to go into. So in this case, we're looking for text specifically. We'll go through some of these other effects because we're going to do a picture-in-picture mode here, which we utilize DVE for, which I'll show you. You can do chroma keys, of course, in this. You can do some matte options here as well. We can do a mixture of blends, dissolves, luma wipes, mask blends, pushes, squeezes, wipes, all kinds of fun stuff. Stylizing. So if you want to add some different styles to your videos, you can do that here as well. But we're looking for some text options. So you can see we have titles, which is an option. We have roll, which it tells you if you hover over, create text, which rolls up the screen, kind of like Star Wars. We have crawl, create text that crawls from right to left. That may be funny depending on how we can pull that off. I'll have to think about that one. We've got two-tone. You can see a little image here kind of giving you an example of what it adds. Right info, pane gradient. So it's going to kind of grade out some of the image so that the text pops out. And this one's a more solid panel, left-hand box. So you've got all of these options of where you want to add text in. Let's try that crawl one here. And I don't think I've ever done this one before. So we're going to apply the effect to the marked section. I'm going to click apply effect, and you can see it adds that crawl effect in right there and then gives me some options that I can basically customize the text. So right now it says sample text. If I move my cursor, my marker over into that space now, you can see that we can see the sample text in the color that it chose. We can also, if we want to see what it looks like without, we can always turn these effects off or completely remove them, duplicate them, reset them, etc. And you can add multiple effects in. You don't have to stick to just one effect there if you don't want to. So if we go back to settings, I can change this to scrap copy, scrap, however you say it. There you go. So we can do a lot of different things. We can change the typeface here if we want to use some different text. We can do italics. We can do bolds. We can change the size of the text if we kind of want to make it smaller there. We can also come on the screen now and I can move it anywhere I want on the screen. So if you don't like it, even if you chose left-hand side, you want to move it, somewhere else, you can do that here and it will translate into your video. I want to change the color because, I'm DOS Geek, so we got to have some of the greens there. So that looks much better. And we'll keep the flat color. We'll do our position, progress, spacing. You can change shadows here if you want to add shadows, add different outlines. Right now we have a black outline, but this gives you the idea of how you can play with different text options within the tool. It's actually very easy. The most important thing really is to mark the section you want the text at first. That's going to save you a lot of time in the end. So now I can go back to edit and then we can play this and see how it rolls out. So let's listen. SCRCPY scrap copy from Genie Mobile. There you go. So
this is
maybe it's not super funny, but it adds a little bit of effect in there and you can see it scrolled across the screen. Nice little effect. So if you were doing wedding videos, if you were editing family videos, you might use the roll up text at the beginning to talk about who's in the video. If you're doing news segments or you're, doing YouTube content where you're covering news, you can add little headlines and things scrolling across right there. So very cool stuff. One of the other things I want to talk about in this video, we've talked about now marking in and out for the keyframes for the text video effects and adjustments, but let's look into removing some clips that we don't want anymore. So how do you get rid of some of these clips? And I kind of showed this in other videos, but I just want to show it again here. You can grab something you don't want anymore and just move it out. Once you move it out, it is gone. You can see it just left a blank space there. So if you want to get rid of some clips, you can do that. If you decide you want it back, you can undo that there as well. The sliders are another thing that you'll see here. And again, I don't use them very often. They're probably what pros utilize, honestly, but I don't. And the main reason is I just find marking in and out spaces in the video and then cutting it mostly what I need. Or again, you can hit the C key to do kind of a hard cut. But if I wanted to maybe shrink the amount of time that this screenshot is showing up here, because maybe the screenshots there is too long, but I don't want it to affect the length of my audio, I can always turn off the audio, and it automatically added this A5 track for me when I did the voiceover, record a voiceover here for this video. Maybe I don't want to affect any of the audio tracks, so I turn those off, and all I want to do is shrink this screenshot. So if I just move my mouse cursor here and it makes that white box and I left click, it will turn to yellow. At that point, I now have a slider where it's going to shrink or increase the length of that clip if I want. And it's going to tell you here in seconds how many seconds now you're off from your audio. So it's going to tell you it's now offset based on what you have. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to undo because I don't want to have it offset from the video. I want it to be in sync with what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to show you the idea behind the sliders. Now, if we kept everything together and we do that same thing, notice that it highlights every track that we have. And now if I shrink it, you can see that it's going to shrink everything and nothing's going to be out of sync. But it is increasing the audio far past where we have any audio because I didn't record anything and it can't extend that out. So it's just going to be blank there. But I don't want to do that again. So I'm just going to undo that. but you can utilize these sliders here to shrink from this point, you know, from the beginning of your video or the end of your video, or kind of do both and find a place in between if you want to. So that is an option as well to do different cuts if you're into that type of thing. So let me make sure the audio is still in sync with what I'm talking about. Now find your build number on your particular device. Mine's under software information. You're going to click it a bunch of times. That's going to open up an option on Android for developer options. You're going to turn on USB debugging mode here. Perfect. So it's still in sync because I undid all those things, but I always like to check because you never know. So now that I've shown you how to remove clips out, I've shown you how to add text in, let's talk about some, and using the sliders, let's talk about audio adjustments, some quick audio adjustments. So we can go into the audio panel here and do some work, but one of the easy things to do, and one of the things I have to do very often because I'm too lazy to re-record my beginning, is it's really loud. Look at the wavelength of my beginning. See how big those waves are in this audio file? And so it's just going to bust people's ears, and I like my listeners and viewers, so I don't want to do that. So I want to lower the volume here. And one way, easiest way to do that versus going into audio and trying to adjust things there, which you can do it there, is just hold down the shift key and you're going to see these little dots show up. Now, if I click these dots and I start bringing them down, you can see that it has a little decibel meter there. And you can see it's now negative 6.8 decibels, negative 9 decibels. So we'll lower it about negative 12 decibels. That's going to raise it to a good volume there. And that's still too loud. Let's lower it a little bit more. So I'm just holding down the shift key, which you can see up here, and then left clicking on that dot and dragging it down. So let's go a little bit deeper and see what we've got here. And actually, I realized I think I was moving the audio in the other area because now we can visibly see the line shrinking here. So let's bring it down just about that spot. And I think we'll be good now. Let's listen. And it's still a little too loud. Let's bring it in some more. There we go. That's good. That won't break anybody's eardrums out when they listen. So that's a quick way. Hold the shift key down, grab the dot. I was grabbing the dot over here, but these are already empty frames. They don't have any volume. It's really pulling the volume from down here. So, you know, we could take these all the way to mute, which is another option as well. If you want to mute the audio in some of the clips that you have, then you can just hold that shift key and pull all the way down. You can also see when we hold the shift key, we get this little arrow here. And what this arrow does is it allows us to do kind of a fade in for how many frames we want and a fade out transition. So if I kind of want to fade this out here, well, let me show you what it was before. So if we want to, right now it sounds like this, all right, at the very end. But if I want to fade that out, then we can fade it out, a really long fade here, and go something like, and you see how it got way quieter and just kind of faded out. And you can also fade in at the beginning as well by just pulling in that corner there while holding the shift key. I have this playing up here, and you can do that with your audio. So that's everything I wanted to cover in this video. We're going to have one more video where we're going to talk about some different effects, adjustments, transitions, and some keyboard shortcuts that I utilize. Some of them I've talked about already, but really that video is just going to be to highlight the final things that I think are important for a beginner to know in Lightworks. Hopefully this video has helped you and the other videos, video 1 and video 2, to learn some basic editing for Lightworks. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and until next time, get out there and fill your brains. Don't forget to subscribe. Like the video.